The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, built to hold the rulers of the stars. Its walls shimmered with cold light, a glow that made the air feel heavy, almost sacred. The ceiling stretched so high that the upper arches vanished into shadows. In the center, a circular floor of silver metal reflected the lights of the chamber. And on that floor stood a single figure, one human. Around him, the seats of the council curved like an endless crown. Dozens of alien leaders sat in silence, their faces sharp with judgment. Behind them, floating screens broadcast the trial to billions of homes across the galaxy. Every world watched. Every empire listened. Earth was not just on trial in this chamber, it was on trial before the entire galaxy. The charges had been spoken many times already. Humanity expanded too quickly. They mined worlds without permission. They built fleets without approval. They ignored the laws of the Council. They traded in secret with outcast species. Again and again, warnings had been given. Again and again, humans had nodded politely and gone back to doing what they wanted. And now, the Council had decided to end it. The leader of the Council, a being of light wrapped in a transparent sphere, rose slowly. Its body flickered like a burning star. Its voice was deep, echoing through the chamber, carried by translators to every ear. "Humanity," it declared, "you stand before us accused of defiance, expansion, and disregard. For centuries, we have given you chances. For centuries, you have ignored them. This council has voted, Earth is banished. Humanity is exiled from the heart of the galaxy." The words struck like thunder. Across the chamber, alien leaders hissed and whispered. Some laughed with satisfaction. Others muttered nervously. Their voices blended into a storm of sound, carried into the broadcast so the whole galaxy could hear. On distant worlds, billions of alien citizens joined the whispers. They spoke of humanity's downfall. Some were glad, some were fearful. But no one ignored it. The human envoy stood still. He was a tall man, dressed in a plain black suit. No armor, no weapons, no symbols of power, only a single silver pin on his chest. His face was calm, unreadable. He did not shout, he did not beg, he only listened. When the words of exile ended, he gave a single, slow nod. The reaction was not what the council expected. Many had prepared themselves for anger. Some thought the human would argue, trying to defend his species. Others thought he might plead for mercy, offering promises to change. A few even feared he might lash out with words of defiance, daring the council to act. But none expected silence. None expected calm acceptance. The quiet stretched on, heavier. With every second, the council members began to shift in their seats. A reptilian delegate with green scales leaned toward his neighbor and hissed, "Why does he not resist?" An insectoid with sharp mandibles clicked nervously. "Perhaps he knows they will not survive." Still, the envoy said nothing. He only stood there, eyes steady, as if he had already known this moment would come. The light being who served as the council's voice grew uneasy. It leaned forward. "Do you understand what this means?" it asked. "Without our trade, your worlds will starve. Without our lanes, your fleets cannot travel. Without our protection, your colonies will fall. You will be alone in the void," the human finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but the translators carried it clearly to every corner of the galaxy. "We understand," he said. He paused, then added, "You wish us gone, so we will go." That was all. No more. The silence that followed was worse than any outbursts. Delegates stared, unsure how to react. Billions watching the broadcast leaned closer to their screens. It was not the voice of a defeated people. It was not the voice of someone broken. It was something else, something harder to understand, calm but heavy, quiet but sharp. The envoy turned and began walking toward the chamber doors. Were slow, steady. The sound of his shoes echoed across the silver floor. He did not look back. He did not show fear. The massive doors opened with a deep groan, and then they closed behind him. The human was gone. For a long time, the chamber stayed quiet. The council members looked at each other, waiting for someone to speak. Finally, one delegate, a creature with 4 shimmering eyes, broke the silence. Why was he so calm? It asked, "Do they not know what exile means?" Another answered, "Perhaps they believe they will survive." Whispers filled the chamber. Again, but beneath the whispers was something else. Something no one wanted to admit. Fear across the galaxy. The broadcast ended, but the questions remained. On trading stations, merchants spoke quickly. "Humans will collapse without trade," they said. "Their colonies cannot stand alone." In military barracks, soldiers laughed. "They are finished. They will crawl back, begging for forgiveness." But not all voices laughed. Some grew quiet, remembering human history, remembering their wars, their stubbornness, their ability to survive on worlds where others could not. Some whispered, "No, this is not the end of them. This is only the beginning of something worse." On Earth, the news spread quickly. Screens across cities repeated the words of exile. People gathered in silence, watching. But there were no riots, no panic, no tears. The silence of the people matched the silence of their envoy. In government halls, leaders met behind closed doors. In hidden bases, soldiers gathered. Factories shifted to different production lines. Fleets began to move. To the galaxy, it looked like acceptance. To humans, it was preparation. But the galaxy could not see the preparations. They only saw the calm of an entire species cut off from the council. Standing alone and not afraid, the silence grew into something larger. Empires that had mocked humans at first began to whisper nervously in private. Why are they so calm? Why do they not resist? Why do they not beg? The more they asked, the more unsettled they felt. It was easier to fight an enemy that shouted. It's easier to fight an enemy that cried, but an enemy that stayed silent. That was harder. That was dangerous. The council itself tried to claim victory. They sent out declarations. They gave speeches. They told their people that humanity had been cast out and would fade away. But deep down, even they felt the same unease. The silence was not weakness. It was not surrender. It was a shadow stretching across the stars, promising something unseen. The first chapter of exile did not begin with fire or war. It began with silence. Silence that filled the chamber. Silence that filled the galaxy. Silence that made even the bravest hearts uneasy. Humanity had been cast out, but they did not break. They did not argue. They did not cry. They only turned and walked away. And though the galaxy thought it was victory, some part of them knew the truth. Silence was not the end. It was only the beginning. Whispers began to spread across the galaxy like smoke drifting through the halls of power. At first they were small, carried by frightened merchants and nervous scouts, but soon they reached every corner of the stars. The humans were quiet, too quiet, had been exiled, cast out of the council's protection, and yet they showed no signs of panic. Instead, they moved in silence. Fleets shifted across the void. Factories glowed with constant work. Colonies vanished from maps without a trace. Alien empires tried to dismiss the rumors. Leaders gave speeches, assuring their people that humanity had been broken. "They are nothing now," one council member declared. "Without our trade, they will starve. Without our markets, they will crumble." But the words felt empty, even to those who spoke them. Because the reports kept arriving, each one stranger than the last. On the edge of known space, a merchant convoy passed through a human system and found it abandoned. Stations that had once been busy were silent. Cities on the surface were empty, their streets dark and lifeless. Not destroyed, not ruined, just gone, as if everyone had left at once. The convoy fled, terrified, carrying the news to nearby worlds. Soon, other scouts brought similar stories. Entire human colonies were disappearing into the void. In the great markets of the trade guilds, merchants huddled together, lowering their voices. "Where are they going?" one asked, glancing nervously around. "Why do they abandon their homes?" Another whispered back, "Perhaps they build something we cannot see." A third shook its head quickly. "Nonsense. They are finished. They run because they are weak." But no one truly believed those words. The fear in their eyes betrayed them. In military outposts, commanders studied the reports with growing unease. "They move too carefully," one officer said. "This is not collapse. This is planning." Another officer slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Then let us strike. If they build something in the dark, we should crush it before it grows." But his superior only frowned. "And if we strike and fail, what then?" "No, we wait. Let us watch." The galaxy continued to whisper, and the whispers always carried the same fear. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was preparing. But for what, no one knew. On Earth, the silence deepened. Cities worked day and night, their skies filled with the trails of departing ships. Vast fleets were assembled in hidden docks, their hulls black against the stars. Scientists worked in secret laboratories, unlocking new designs, pushing beyond the limits known to the Council. The exile had not broken them, it had freed them, without the Council watching, without rules to restrain them. Humanity was moving faster than ever before. In underground chambers, leaders spoke plainly. "They think they have cast us out," one said. "But in truth, they have given us freedom." Another nodded. "No longer do we wait for permission. No longer do we ask for approval. Now we build for ourselves." Their words echoed through the halls, carried to every commander, every worker, every soldier. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. The galaxy could not see the full picture, but it felt the weight of the silence. Empires that once mocked humans began to grow cautious. Trade fleets rerouted to avoid human space. Refused to enter abandoned systems. Even pirates hesitated, fearing what they might find in the dark. The absence of humanity in the council chamber was louder than any words. The empty seat seemed to burn into the eyes of the delegates, a constant reminder of the decision they had made. One by one, council members began to voice their doubts. "Did we make a mistake?" A scaled delegate whispered during a private session. "Perhaps exile was not punishment, but release," another hissed angrily. "You speak treason. They are nothing now." But even he could not hide the tremor in his voice. The whisper spread further. On backwater worlds, taverns buzzed with rumors. Some said the humans had found a hidden galaxy of their own. Others claimed they were building a fleet so vast it could darken the stars. Few whispered something darker, that humans had never been weak, only patient. And that exile had forced them to show their true nature. The truth was unknown, but the silence fed every fear. And in that fear, a dangerous thought began to grow. If humanity returned, it would not return as a beggar. It would return as something greater, something the council could no longer control. Still, the humans said nothing. Their envoy did not speak again. Their worlds did not answer calls. Their ships did not send messages. They simply vanished, leaving behind shadows and questions. And the more questions the galaxy asked, the more afraid it became of the answers. Silence had become humanity's greatest weapon. The galaxy was beginning to realize that silence might soon give way to something far more terrifying. Whispers began to spread across the galaxy like smoke drifting through the halls of power. At first they were small, carried by frightened merchants and nervous scouts, but soon they reached every corner of the stars. The humans were quiet, too quiet, had been exiled, cast out of the council's protection, and yet they showed no signs of panic. Instead, they moved in silence. Fleets shifted across the void. Factories glowed with constant work. Colonies vanished from maps without a trace. Alien empires tried to dismiss the rumors. Leaders gave speeches, assuring their people that humanity had been broken. "They are nothing now," one council member declared. "Without our trade, they will starve. Without our markets, they will crumble." But the words felt empty, even to those who spoke them, because the reports kept arriving, each one stranger than the last. On the edge of known space, a merchant convoy passed through a human system and found it abandoned. Stations that had once been busy were silent. Cities on the surface were empty, their streets dark and lifeless. Not destroyed, not ruined, just gone, as if everyone had left at once. The convoy fled, terrified, carrying the news to nearby worlds. Soon, other scouts brought similar stories. Entire human colonies were disappearing into the void. In the great markets of the trade guilds, merchants huddled together, lowering their voices. "Where are they going?" one asked, glancing nervously around. "Why do they abandon their homes?" Another whispered back, "Perhaps they build something we cannot see." A third shook its head quickly. "Nonsense. They are finished. They run because they are weak." But no one truly believed those words. The fear in their eyes betrayed them. In military outposts, commanders studied the reports with growing unease. "They move too carefully," one officer said. "This is not collapse. This is planning." Another officer slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Then let us strike. If they build something in the dark, we should crush it before it grows." But his superior only frowned. "And if we strike and fail, what then?" "No, we wait. Let us watch." The galaxy continued to whisper, and the whispers always carried the same fear. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was preparing. But for what, no one knew. On Earth, the silence deepened. Cities worked day and night, their skies filled with the trails of departing ships. Vast fleets were assembled in hidden docks, their hulls black against the stars. Scientists worked in secret laboratories, unlocking new designs, pushing beyond the limits known to the Council. The exile had not broken them, it had freed them, without the Council watching, without rules to restrain them. Humanity was moving faster than ever before. In underground chambers, leaders spoke plainly. "They think they have cast us out," one said. "But in truth, they have given us freedom." Another nodded. "No longer do we wait for permission. No longer do we ask for approval. Now we build for ourselves." Their words echoed through the halls, carried to every commander, every worker, every soldier. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. The galaxy could not see the full picture, but it felt the weight of the silence. Empires that once mocked humans began to grow cautious. Trade fleets rerouted to avoid human space. Refused to enter abandoned systems. Even pirates hesitated, fearing what they might find in the dark. The absence of humanity in the council chamber was louder than any words. The empty seat seemed to burn into the eyes of the delegates, a constant reminder of the decision they had made. One by one, council members began to voice their doubts. "Did we make a mistake?" A scaled delegate whispered during a private session. "Perhaps exile was not punishment, but release," another hissed angrily. "You speak treason. They are nothing now." But even he could not hide the tremor in his voice. The whispers spread further. On backwater worlds, taverns buzzed with rumors. Some said the humans had found a hidden galaxy of their own. Others claimed they were building a fleet so vast it could darken the stars. Few whispered something darker, that humans had never been weak, only patient. And that exile had forced them to show their true nature. The truth was unknown, but the silence fed every fear. And in that fear, a dangerous thought began to grow. If humanity returned, it would not return as a beggar. It would return as something greater, something the council could no longer control. Still, the humans said nothing. Their envoy did not speak again. Their worlds did not answer calls. Their ships did not send messages. They simply vanished, leaving behind shadows and questions. And the more questions the galaxy asked, the more afraid it became of the answers. Silence had become humanity's greatest weapon. The galaxy was beginning to realize that silence might soon give way to something far more terrifying. The council chamber felt different without the humans. The seat they once held remained empty, a dark gap in the perfect circle of delegates. At first, many thought the absence would be a relief. For centuries, humans had been disruptive, always questioning, always pushing. Now with them gone, the chamber was quieter, decisions easier, but the silence did not feel like peace. It felt like a weight pressing down on everyone present. When the council gathered, their voices echoed strangely, as if bouncing off the hollow where the human should have been. Delegates tried not to look at the empty space, but their eyes drifted to it anyway. It was a reminder, a ghost at the table. In the broadcasts across the galaxy, citizens noticed it too. They sent questions to their leaders. Why leave the seat empty? Why not fill it? But the council refused. Said the space was a warning, a symbol of exile. But too many, it looked like fear. Embassies once held by humans on alien worlds began to close one by one. The doors shut, the banners pulled down, and the staff vanished without explanation. Cities that had once been filled with the sound of human voices grew quiet. Spaceports, where human merchants bargained fiercely, were left empty. At first, aliens celebrated the new freedom, thinking they had rid themselves of a nuisance. But over time, they found the silence unnerving. In the vast libraries of the knowledge guilds, scholars muttered about the absence. Their arguments may have been loud, one said, but they challenged us to think. Without them, the chamber feels weaker. Another shook its head nervously. It is not weakness, I fear. It is what they are doing in silence. Trade guilds began to feel the loss as well. Humans had been bold traders, willing to take risks others avoided. With them gone, certain routes grew dangerous, certain markets dried up. Smugglers tried to take their place, but they lacked the same daring spirit. Slowly, the galaxy began to realize that the empty space left behind was larger than anyone expected. The absence reached deeper still. Soldiers and border patrols noticed. At first, without human fleets patrolling certain lanes, pirates grew bold. But sometimes those pirates returned with strange stories. We chased them into human space, one survivor reported, but the systems were empty. Not destroyed, not abandoned, empty. Others told tales of entire convoys vanishing into the dark without a trace. Rumors spread that humans had emptied their colonies and carried them somewhere else. Far beyond the maps, fear grew in the council. They did not admit it openly, but in private meetings, the questions grew louder. Why did they close their embassies so quickly? One delegate asked, its voice trembling. Why did they not even argue? Where have their people gone? The answers never came. Silence was the only reply. Ordinary citizens felt it too. On planets across the stars, those who once lived near humans noticed the change most of all. A neighbor gone, market stall empty. A factory shut down overnight. The galaxy was used to humans being loud, argumentative, restless. Now they were simply gone, and that was worse. The silence began to feel like a message. Not a surrender, not a plea, but a message written across. The stars, we do not need you. The council tried to ignore it. They gave speeches about strength, about unity without humans, but their voices cracked with doubt. The empty throne in the chamber mocked them with every meeting in secret. Some leaders began to wonder if exile had not weakened humanity, but strengthened it, perhaps without the weight of the council's rules. Without the chains of endless debates, the humans were free to act as they pleased. Perhaps the silence was not the sound of defeat, but the sound of preparation. And in the quiet streets of abandoned colonies, in the sealed halls of closed embassies, in the darkened systems left behind, the message was the same. Humanity had turned away. Humanity had walked into the shadows. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to fear what would emerge when they returned. The empty throne was more than a gap. It was a warning, and every day it remained empty. The warning grew louder. Across the stars, reports began to reach the council, reports that confused even the most experienced observers. Human colonies were no longer simply quiet, they were vanishing. Entire settlements that had once been full of life were empty overnight. Cities with millions of people were abandoned, the buildings untouched, the streets clear, the power grid still running. But the people were gone. At first, the council dismissed these reports as exaggerations. Scouts must have made mistakes. Perhaps the colonies were hiding underground. Perhaps it was an error in transmission. But as more and more fleets returned, with the same stories, the council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity was leaving in the outer rings of space. Merchant ships stumbled upon vast convoys of human transports moving silently through the dark. The transports carried no markings, no signals. They traveled with perfect discipline, guarded by warships that did not speak a word to those who saw them. When hailed, they gave no response. When approached, they turned slowly, weapons charged. And the merchants fled in fear. Whispers spread quickly. "Where are they going?" one trader asked in a crowded tavern. "Why did they abandon their homes?" Another leaned in close, voice low. "Maybe they have found something, a world beyond the council's reach." Others shook their heads. "No, they build in secret. They prepare for something." The words traveled faster than light, carried by fear from one system to the next. On the council world's leaders grew restless. Some demanded action. "We must send fleets," a scaled delegate shouted. "We must follow them and uncover their plans." Others shook their heads nervously. "No. To follow them into the dark is to risk war." "And what if they want us to follow? What if this is a trap?" The silence of humanity made every choice dangerous. Without words, without threats, no one could predict their intentions. And so the council hesitated, arguing as humans continued to disappear from their maps. For ordinary citizens, the vanishing was terrifying. Traders who once dealt with humans lost partners overnight. Colonies near human borders watched with unease as entire planets went dark. Rumors grew wild. Some said the humans were building a hidden empire far beyond the galaxy's edge. Others claimed they were gathering weapons of impossible power. Few whispered that humanity had never intended to stay among the council, that exile had only given them the excuse they needed to reveal their true path. On Earth, the skies burned with departing ships. Massive carriers lifted whole cities into orbit. Families boarded transports, leaving behind homes that had stood for generations. Oceans churned with the engines of submersible factories, launching piece after piece of massive structures into the stars. To those watching from the ground, it was both terrifying and beautiful. Their world was emptying, but it was not dying. It was transforming. In orbit, fleets assembled in numbers never seen before. Warships lined up in silence, their dark holes absorbing the light of the sun. Cargo vessels moved in endless streams, carrying supplies into the void. There was no chaos, no disorder. Everything was precise, organized. It was not the action of a people desperate to survive. It was the movement of a species following a plan. Scouts from other empires tried to enter human space to see more, but most never returned. Those who did told strange stories. "We saw shipyards the size of moons," one whispered, trembling. "We saw fleets so vast they filled the stars, and then they vanished, gone into the dark as if swallowed." Another, eyes wide with fear, said, "They are not running. They are not hiding. They are leaving us behind." The council grew desperate for information, but their spies found nothing. Every attempt to infiltrate human space ended in silence. Fleets vanished, agents disappeared. The humans revealed nothing, and the galaxy's fear grew. One by one, human colonies that once filled the maps blinked out. Entire star systems emptied. Where once there was light, there was only darkness. It was as if humanity was erasing itself from the galaxy's memory. But everyone knew it was not erasure, it was departure. And so the whispers changed. No longer did they ask where humanity had gone. They asked when humanity would return. In the empty council chamber, the human seat remained untouched, a reminder of the exile. The delegates avoided looking at it, but none could escape the thought that one day it might no longer be empty. And when that day came, the humans would not come back as outcasts. They would come back as something greater. The first departures were not the end. They were the beginning. And the galaxy, watching helplessly, could feel it. Humanity was moving with purpose, and whatever waited at the end of their journey would shake the stars. Whispers of fear turned into waves of panic as more systems reported the same pattern. Human fleets were not scattered or desperate. They moved with precision, with unity, with silence that carried more weight than any threat. It was as if an invisible hand guided them. Across the stars, people began to realize the truth. Exile had not broken humanity. The council met in endless sessions, their voices sharp with unease. Delegates shouted over one another, demanding answers that no one had. Some cried for war before the humans grew too strong. Others trembled at the very idea. "How can we fight what we cannot even find?" one asked, its voice heavy with fear. "They vanish into the dark. They erase themselves from our maps. To strike at them is to strike at shadows." The chamber fell into uneasy silence at those words. In the taverns of trading worlds, smugglers and pilots told tales that spread like fire. Convoys of human ships seen moving through uncharted space. Shipyards orbiting dead suns, building vessels larger than anything the Council possessed. Strange signals that echoed in the void before cutting off suddenly. Each tale was different, but they all carried the same undertone. Humanity was preparing for something vast. Ordinary citizens began to ask questions their leaders could not answer. "Why did we exile them?" they asked. "Why did we push them away?" The official speeches spoke of law, of order, of keeping peace. But beneath those words lurked doubt. Even the most loyal citizens could feel it. The humans had not been defeated. They had been unleashed. On the edges of human space, strange encounters began to occur. Patrol fleets reported seeing flashes in the dark fleets larger than anything they had faced before, yet when they moved closer, nothing was there. Merchant ships spoke of hearing faint signals, coded and precise, before being chased away by human warships that refused to speak a single word. Every encounter ended the same way: silence. The humans never explained, never threatened. They simply acted, leaving the galaxy to wonder. Within the Council, a new fear spread. Delegates whispered in the quiet halls when they thought no one listened. "They are building an empire," one said. "Not here, not under our eyes. Somewhere. Far, somewhere greater." Another shook its head. "No, they are not only building an empire. They are building something to come back with," and the ordinary people of the galaxy believed it. Markets that once thrived on human trade now struggled. Routes that had once been safe grew dangerous without human presence. Pirates filled the gaps, but they lacked the courage and skill that humans had always shown. Even enemies of Earth, those who had once demanded exile, began to wonder if the decision had been a mistake. On Earth itself, the skies were never empty. Endless streams of ships launched from the planet, carrying millions into the void. The great oceans boiled with activity as shipyards beneath the waves sent massive constructs into orbit. Cities became hollowed, not abandoned, but transformed into command centers, feeding the departure. It was not chaos, it was order. Every man, woman, and child seemed to know their place in the great movement above the planet. Fleets formed patterns that no outsider could understand. To alien eyes, it looked like madness, like disorder. But to those within the fleets, it was part of something greater, something vast. A design too large to see all at once. A design only humanity could know. The galaxy watched with growing dread. Humanity spoke no words, made no threats, issued no demands. They simply acted. And in their silence, fear grew stronger than any declaration of war. For silence meant intent. Silence meant patience. Silence meant power. And then, one day, the reports changed. Human fleets were no longer just leaving. They were gathering. In uncharted space, beyond the edge of the Council's maps, entire systems lit up with activity. Moons were stripped for metal, stars were ringed with colossal stations, armies and fleets converged. The scouts who managed to glimpse this returned trembling. "It is not preparation," one whispered. "It is construction. They are building something the galaxy has never seen." The Council chamber shook with debate. Should they intervene? Should they strike now? Some called for fleets to march into the dark, but fear held them back. "And what if we fail?" one asked quietly. "What if we strike and awaken something we cannot stop?" The room fell silent because no one could answer, and in the endless dark, humanity continued its work. They had no need to shout, no need to argue. They had been exiled, cast out, declared unwanted, but they had not been broken. They had been freed, and now they built not for survival, but for destiny. The storm was coming. The galaxy could feel it, even if no one could see its shape. Humanity was gathering its strength, and when the silence finally ended, the stars themselves would tremble. It began with a flicker on the outer edges of known space. A lone patrol ship, circling a quiet border system, detected something vast to be natural. The crew thought it was a sensor error, a glitch caused by radiation storms. But as they adjusted the instruments, the truth became clear. The shadow in the void was moving. It was not a storm. It was a fleet. They sent word to the nearest command station, voices trembling as they described what they saw. Hundreds. No, thousands of ships. Human ships. They move as one, without a single wasted motion. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Patrol ship never returned. News spread faster than light. Whispers filled every marketplace, every council chamber. Every private home? The humans are back, people said. The silence is over. Yet no official statement came from Earth. The fleets did not broadcast messages, did not answer hails. They simply appeared, vast and unbroken, on the edge of the galaxy. And their presence alone shook the stars. The council scrambled into emergency session. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices sharp with panic. "We must send fleets to intercept them," cried one. Another snapped back and lose them. "The way we lost our scouts? We cannot fight what we cannot even understand." A third whispered what many were already thinking. "This is not an attack. This is a message." The chamber grew silent at those words. Message. But one written not in words, not in threats, but in presence. Humanity had been exiled, erased. From the circle, cast out. Now they had returned, not to plead, not to argue, but to remind the galaxy that exile did not mean disappearance. Across the stars, ordinary people gathered in front of screens, watching the images of the fleet. Endless rows of ships, their hulls dark and sharp, stretching farther than the eye could see. Carriers the size of small moons, warships whose weapons glowed faintly, though they did not fire. Cargo vessels carrying unknown cargo, their silence. As heavy as their presence, it was a sight no one could ignore. Merchants who once traded with humans felt both fear and hope. Some whispered, perhaps they returned to open markets again. Others shook their heads. No, look at them. They're not merchants now. They are something greater. Soldiers who had fought humans before sat in silence, remembering battles where small human fleets had fought with impossible determination. Now those same soldiers stared at a force so large that even the bravest among them felt dread. Still, the humans spoke no words. They did not announce their intentions, did not declare war, they did not ask for peace. They simply moved with precision, their fleets spreading across border systems, occupying no worlds, seizing no resources. It was a demonstration calm, controlled, terrifying in its silence. Inside the council, fear gave way to anger. Some demanded that the humans be confronted immediately. "If we allow this, they will grow bold," one delegate shouted. But others remembered the silence of exile, the disappearance of colonies, the construction glimpsed in the dark. "They have been preparing for years," another whispered. "Do you truly believe we can stop them now?" No decision was reached, the council argued. But as always, humanity did not wait. In the following days, the first real signs appeared, not speeches. Not negotiations, but symbols. Enormous stations, newly built, drifted into position along trade routes once controlled by the council. They bore no banners, no declarations, only a single mark repeated across every surface, the insignia of Earth. It was not the old emblem. Used in council halls, it was sharper, stronger, something new. It's a symbol of independence. When merchant convoys approached, the stations did not fire. Instead, they opened their docks. The humans said no words, but they offered fuel, supplies, safe passage. And when merchants tried to pay, the humans refused. No cost, a single automated message said, "Safe roads for all." It was the first time the galaxy had heard their voices in years, and the words were simple but powerful. Whispers grew louder. The humans were not only back, they were building their own order. A network of safe routes protected not by treaties, but by presence. A shadow empire forming in plain sight, without battles, without speeches, without blood. And so the galaxy trembled. For if this was only their return, what would come next? The fleets grew. The stations multiplied. The humans did not wait for permission, did not ask for recognition. They acted, and the stars shifted around them. The first return was not an attack. It was a warning, a reminder, a promise. Humanity had been exiled. Now humanity had returned, and the galaxy finally understood the silence had been preparation. The calm had been planning, and the return was only the beginning. The galaxy held its breath. For weeks, the human fleets moved across the stars in silence, vast shadows gliding from system to system. They did not conquer, they did not destroy. They simply appeared, built, and moved again, leaving behind stations and routes that bent the balance of power without a single shot being fired. The council could no longer pretend this was chance. It was deliberate. It was a plan unfolding before their eyes, step by step. Fear gnawed at the delegates. Every meeting turned into shouting. Some wanted war, others demanded negotiations, but no one dared to make the first move. They remembered too well how easily their scouts vanished, how quickly their fleets were outmaneuvered. Every option seemed dangerous. And above it all, the empty human seat in the chamber remained, glowing under the cold light, mocking their indecision. Then it happened. The silence broke. Across every major channel, on every world and every station, human signals appeared at once. Billions watched as the screens lit up with the same image, a vast command chamber, human-built, but alien in its scale. At the center stood a single figure, the human envoy, clad in a simple dark uniform, eyes steady, voice calm. "You exiled us," the envoy said. The words were quiet, but they carried like thunder across the stars. "You cast us out, thinking exile would break us. But you never understood what we are, gave us freedom, and we used it." Behind the envoy, the screens shifted, revealing images of colossal shipyards, fleets numbering in the tens of thousands, stations larger than cities orbiting distant suns. The galaxy watched in silence as humanity revealed what it had built. "In the years of exile, we did not wait for permission," the envoy continued. "We did not beg for a place at your table. We built our own. Beyond your laws, beyond your limits, beyond your reach." The images grew darker. Armies training in perfect order. Weapons glowing with unknown power. Carriers launching waves of war machines into the void. It was not a threat, but it was a warning written in steel and fire. "We do not come to rule. You," the envoy said. And many in the galaxy dared to breathe again. But no, this never again will humanity bow. Never again will we beg for a voice. You cast us out, and we learned we were stronger alone. If you seek peace, you will have it. If you seek trade, we will grant it. If you seek chains, the envoy's voice hardened, sharp as a blade. Then we will remind you why you feared us. The transmission ended. No more words, no demands, just silence again. But this silence was different. It was not exile. It was dominance. The council chamber was paralyzed. For years they had feared what humanity might do. Now they knew. And the knowledge was worse than their fears. Humanity had not been weakened by exile. They had been transformed. Cast out of the council, they had built something greater than the council itself. Across the stars, citizens whispered the truth that leaders dared not say aloud. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command. It belonged to two powers, now the council, fractured and afraid, and humanity. Silent but unstoppable, and in the darkness beyond the mapped stars, fleets continued to grow. Humanity did not wait to be asked twice. They had been exiled, but now they had returned, stronger than ever. The galaxy trembled, not because of what humans had said, but because of what they might do next. The revelation was clear. Humanity was no longer just part of the galaxy. Humanity had become its shadow, its storm, its coming future. And every being across the stars knew with chilling certainty that the age of exile was over. The age of humanity had begun.